female colleague posed a question recently. Do you have to be an asshole to be a great filmmaker, artist, architect, whatever? It got me thinking. Trusting to serendipity, I stepped into my favorite bookstore, where the muses often guide me. After scanning the shelves, destiny did reward me. Assholes, a theory. I immediately took it to the checkout counter. Within days, I met with the author Aaron James, philosophy professor and lifelong Californian surfer. I wanted to know what inspired his book.
So while I was surfing here, I saw a guy surfing who was blatantly dropping in on some of the other surfers, violating the rules of right-of-way. And this person, when people would complain, would get really angry and yell at them as a way of getting waves. Surfers are definitely used to having paradise spoiled by crowds, and the asshole spoils it in a particularly pronounced way. When I'm thinking this guy is an asshole, I'm not just venting feelings, I'm classifying him as of a certain type of moral personality. When you use that word, you're thinking of a type, and philosophers get interested in this kind of thing. But then when I started thinking through about the asshole concept, I thought, oh, well, can't you define the term? Isn't that a definable term? At that point, I started thinking, okay, this really is a general type, you know, it's not just the surfer asshole concept.
And there seems to be a lot more assholes this year than any other year, especially in the public eye. I'm not sure what's going on, but we're overwhelmed this year anyways.
We're doing a film based on the book Assholes, a Theory, and the author is saying that, you know, it's...
Oh, it's not just a theory, it's a reality.
It's a reality.
Oh, come on now, it's out there. It's a reality.
The asshole, as I define it, is the guy who allows himself special advantages in cooperative life out of an entrenched sense of entitlement that immunizes him against the complaints of other people.
It's a great word to say. What an asshole.
He's the guy who cuts in line at the post office, taking a special advantage in cooperative life. You know, people are waiting in line, and they'll allow someone in if they have an emergency or if it's a pregnant woman, right? But this guy does it, takes a special advantage for a different reason, you know, out of a sense of entitlement.
Asshole. You can really lean into it, right? That guy is such an asshole.
And it could be any sense of entitlement. He thinks he's rich and his time is more important than other people, or he thinks he's especially smart or beautiful.
The euphony of the word, right? It just feels good to say. It sounds good to say.
And the upshot of his being entrenched in that sense of entitlement is that he won't listen to others when they complain.
It was especially nice when he added the word entrench, right? An entrenched sense in self-entitlement, that this is an abiding problem, that it's a sort of deeply, it's very, it sort of goes down into the bones almost of the person who has the problem.
It's generally somebody who says, let's talk about my favorite thing, me. Generally, right? Me, 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 me.
The entitlement that I'm more important than you, what I do is more important than you, your feelings don't count, you don't count, your work doesn't count. And assholes also like to take all the credit.
There's a teeming asshole ecosystem, and in it there are many different species, many different varieties. For example, the boorish asshole, the smug asshole, the self-aggrandizing asshole.
There's drunk assholes, arrogant assholes, smug assholes, narcissistic assholes. Well, you gotta kind of be a narcissist to be an asshole anyways.
The sexist asshole, the reckless asshole. At work, there's the asshole boss.
There's no shortage. Out of any kind of person in the world, there's more descriptive kinds for an asshole to a normal person, really. So, we're blessed, I guess, with many kinds.
You are a fucking asshole, Frank.
That I am. Never denied it. But at least I'm an honest asshole.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
Sometimes in comedy, behaving a bit like an asshole can be funny. And we can laugh at that because it's not really serious.
Dad, what are you doing?
Well, I'm gonna call the police.
Assholes in Aaron's book and in the movies, yes. But I needed to investigate their impact in the real world. So I hit the streets of LA.
Well, where are you from?
Mexico. I'm from Mexico.
And do you have assholes in Mexico?
Yeah, of course we do. I believe that all countries have assholes. I mean, there's not one country that you can say that there are not assholes at all.
Privileged behavior is on the rise, and people seem to think that it's okay to say and do almost anything. They treat folks like they're invisible, and I think it's so unfortunate.
You have to deal with this behavior yourself? Like, you come across
I'm a big
that?
black guy. Most people don't bother me. You know what I mean? If I just look without smiling.
Well, I think that starts at home. That starts from the beginning. Today's people think it's okay that they don't have to listen to nobody. If they don't respect their parents, they're not going to respect anybody else. That's the way I look at it.
I met psychotherapist Suji Gellerman at home on a break from her LA office. I asked her if LA was a fertile ground for assholery.
Where are the assholes? Well, Hollywood has a large percentage of assholes.
You're an asshole.
I'm an asshole. She's the asshole. She never called me once after we broke up.
That's because you're an asshole.
I think there's a higher percentage of narcissists feeling like assholes because they just don't consider you. And in the way that Aaron would be talking about, that you have a certain kind of moral high ground, that you're better than other people. Narcissists don't even know there are other people. Okay, so if they don't know there's other people, how can they even really process the fact that they're being mean to you or unforgiving or unkind or negating, that you don't really exist?
Bitter, self-righteous hag who has no friends.
I guess in this society, being male and an asshole makes you worthy of our time.
The tyranny of assholedom, one of the places that people don't talk that much about it is body image for women. The tyranny of what it's like to be a young woman in our society, an older woman, an invisible old woman, and how you're treated, and people treat you really poorly. Or young girls who aren't the perfect body type, how that goes. You know, how you're talked to, how you're bullied by other kids. That to me is real asshole behavior.
Harvey Weinstein? I think he's a perv. I think he's a perv and an asshole.
What kind of therapy do you think Weinstein's going through right now?
The pretense that I read was that, you know, he's got sexual addiction problems. That's the least of his problems, is sexual addiction. I have worked with people, and the only reason the abusers changed was they truly saw how it was created in them, what their behavior was, and how destructive it was, and wanted to change.
Part of the asshole being entrenched in entitlement is the idea that if they're a proper asshole and not sort of borderline case, then that means that I think it's extremely difficult for them to see that there's a different, you know, I mean, what they're doing works for them, they're deeply invested in it, they really are convinced, they really believe that they're, you know, entitled and special in these ways, and that's very tough to shake.
Being an asshole has a sort of like edginess to it, you know? Like when people say, oh, this person an asshole, it gets people thinking. It's like, oh, what's this person all about? Why is this person identified as an asshole? And it opens the door to let other people get to know you, you know? It really puts the attention on you, you know? I'm an attention whore. I love seeking attention.
What makes me want to be an asshole is just seeing everybody else, seeing what they're getting in life, and then seeing what I've gotten in my life, not being one. It's a big difference. So I've definitely learned from my mistakes in that category, and I've, you know, altered that. So yeah, I think that's why I'm choosing to be an asshole.
I feel like anyone who legitimately considers himself an asshole isn't really an asshole. I think it's like a person who got hurt in high school, so they, you know, now I'm a dick in traffic or whatever. I think real assholes don't realize they're assholes.
An asshole is somebody who ought to know better than to be as arrogant as he is. And is in some sense repressing the information he has. In that sense, an asshole is different from a prick who can know perfectly well what he's doing. The asshole tells himself it's okay for one or another reason. That's one reason why, for example, a 5-year-old we might call a little shit, but we wouldn't call a 5-year-old a little asshole. You can't be an asshole till you're old enough to know better. Maybe about 14 you become eligible for assholism.
Can women be assholes?
Absolutely. Oh, anyone can be an asshole.
I guess in a way my mother was an asshole.
But I prefer to be called a dick because it sounds cooler, it's got more gusto.
It seems that among the assholes they tend to all pile up on the male side of the gender divide.
Oh, yes. There's no question it's mainly men.
Assholes were by definition men. But then I thought of certain examples, like Ann Coulter, for example.
I'm sure there's others, but I think it's 99% of them are men.
Do you have any favorite assholes?
Favorite assholes?
I am the #1 most impactful artist of our generation.
Kanye. Kanye West is a pretty big one.
I am Shakespeare in the flesh. Walt Disney, Nike, Google.
I really love the way Kanye's outlook on the world. He's very well-spoken and does what he wants and doesn't care what people say about him.
Assholes are almost by definition unhappy. There are people who say, oh, I'm an asshole and I have no qualms about it and this is how I get ahead and so on and so forth. When you hear somebody say unapologetically, I'm an asshole, he's almost never an asshole, he's a dick.
I can be an asshole.
No, Bruce, you can't. You gonna pick that up?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
If you regret it later, or you feel sorry, or you feel, then that's a sign that you're not really entrenched in that. But that's a different thing than someone being an asshole to you first, and then you trying to answer and now, if you think that guy's an asshole, now I have permission to just sort of let my inner asshole out, then that's that's an asshole move, right?
The nice guy doesn't get the girl and the asshole does. The asshole never keeps the girl. It's always the nice guy who keeps the girl, but definitely for a one-night stand or hooking up, the asshole definitely gets it. Our confidence is just, it extrudes more than the average person because we're so confident in ourselves, and girls love that.
Me and my buddies have competitions where we go downtown LA and just see who could pick up the most girls' numbers, and at the end of the night, I mean, it's up to you if you want to text them, but I personally, I only text about 75% or 25% of those because, I mean, I don't even find most of them attractive.
You pompous, stuck-up, snot-nosed, English, giant, twerp, scumbag, fuckface, dickhead, asshole.
How very interesting.
Sherry Lee Benson Podolchuk found a particular breed when she joined the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
It was very much indoctrinated right from the start to go along, to get along, and it was a group think. Everybody has to think the same. We always support each other. The law is sacrosanct. Never lie. You follow the detachment commander, whoever is your boss, whoever's a senior officer, without question. And it's a systemic problem of the going along to get along. Protect your own. If you don't follow this, then you will be considered the other, and then you are a target for bullying and harassment.
So what do you call this kind of behavior that ensued?
This is called asshole behavior. And I know my grandma would say, nice girls don't say asshole. But guess what, Grandma? You didn't work for the RCMP, because there's a lot of assholes who are wearing the red serge, who are pretending to be leaders when in fact they are complete assholes.
Sherry's trouble started when she refused to lie in support of a fellow officer. In a false statement, he claimed his foot had slipped on the gas when he rammed a citizen's car. She knew he had been drinking on the job.
The retaliation was quick. I went to get my gun out of my gun belt, and someone had gone in there, and I had a blue gym bag, and in the blue gym bag were my personal things. And there was a dead prairie chicken with blood dripping all over my personal things. When you know that there's people in the organization that are willing to cross that line, it's very scary. I decided that, just trying to handle this in-house isn't working. I have a leader who is a complete asshole, totally ineffective, and would rather side with the bullies, the assholes, than stand up for what is right, which was
one woman and several male officers. That was one of the pivotal moments that I decided that I have to say something and make a formal complaint. Yeah, it was life-changing.
Sherry's sexual harassment complaint enraged the RCMP, and it completely disrupted her life.
I thought, if I work one more day, and I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I just thought, if I go into that building one more time, I would die.
With no one listening and aware she might not be the only one, Sherry went public with her cause, the first to do so.
After my book came out, I was having lunch with another RCMP officer, and he said, well, you know, Sherry, the RCMP hate you. You know, your book didn't make much of a scream in the press, and they were waiting to see if anything happened, and nothing did. So now they want to destroy you, either ruin you financially or drive you to suicide. And I took that as a legitimate threat. Would they have done something? I didn't know. But at the time, I felt that it was always a possibility. They don't obey the law. The two things I was told to do: never lie and always follow the law.
After 20 years of no response from government, media, or fellow officers, the floodgates finally opened. A class action suit with over 3,000 women's signatures is filed against the RCMP. 2 years later, the federal government appoints the first female head of the force.
I think human beings, while very kind, many of them have a tendency always to see how much they can get in the world. I mean, you see this with toddlers who are like, you have to teach a toddler to share because toddlers don't want to share. It's me, it's me, it's me. It's the thing that I want. And we train our young humans out of this behavior as they age. And then there's this another stage when people are teenagers, when they become assholes again, and it's developmentally appropriate, just the way it was for toddlers, where everyone wants what they want and they want to have it and they don't much care for other people's feelings.
Teenagers themselves are in a natural state of change. Adults are astonished and bewildered by the more outlandish of today's teen fads.
Almost categorically, teenagers are assholes. They're discovering assholism, as it were.
And we try to train them out of it.
Yeah, we do try to train them out of it, or to teach them to repress it, more to the point. And some manage to do that, or manage to repress those impulses. Others never quite make it.
Most teenagers flirt with kind of an asshole phase. They're not really an asshole in the sense of a stable trait of character. Some teenagers they're going to graduate to being a proper asshole, as it were, and others it's just a passing phase and they're going to grow out of it, and okay, you know, the spell breaks, and you know, they, I don't know, go to college and have a sense of sort of peer camaraderie and equality, and there's some accountability there, and okay, maybe my parents weren't so bad.
As Aaron says, some teenagers get over their sense of entitlement. Others graduate into the workforce with it. At Cornell, an Ivy League university, I met Jonathan Gilmore, a student and ex-Marine with a keen sense of empathy for others.
Did you run into any asshole behavior in the military? Is that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Are you about to call me an asshole? Sir, no, sir!
I mean, day one, like, boot camp's like, 3 months of dealing with the biggest assholes you've ever met in your life.
I don't like the name Lawrence. Only faggots and sailors are called Lawrence.
I mean, these guys are screaming at you, calling you faggots, calling you, every name in the book that's derogatory, and, physically hurting you. The Marine Corps is a brotherhood, right? It's like a lot of people will say it's arguably like the largest frat in the United States. And so I figured, okay, if I go to Cornell, then what would be like the best decision? It would be to join a fraternity. I could have a brotherhood again, and I could connect with other people. So I was just like kind of mingling around and figuring out which fraternity I would vibe with the best. And it was just like this, you know, that just like super over macho man, masculine kind of like, oh, like, you know, you gotta poke your chest out and like you gotta talk like this and like, what's up, bro? It was just this like
The film Animal House.
When I'm your older brother, when I'm your big brother, I'm gonna belittle you. At least for that first semester, you're gonna be my little bitch. And that to me, just that seems like huge asshole behavior, especially because they're like 18, 19-year-old kids and they get just a little bit of power. And of course they're gonna run off with it, you know? Women are objectified, they're sexualized. It's the focus of the attention is for all the guys in the fraternities to get as much sex as possible. Women are never main characters, they're always pushed off to the side. And that's fraternity life now. You can have one asshole, but then you have people supporting them. And I think those are almost like, that's like worse. Like, you know it's there, you know that guy's gonna do that kind of stuff, and you guys won't do anything about it. And it's just like boosting his ego once again, and then that guy's gonna get out and think that that's okay. And he'll find friends. They'll find plenty of people who are totally accepting and willing to have discussions like that.
They have, you know, lists of the women they've slept with that they write on the wall and things like that. And so I think a fraternity is definitely a place where that sort of behavior can be spread and made worse. And maybe the thing to do about it is for schools not to be affiliated with fraternities.
These kids are gonna graduate and they're gonna go out into the world. And they're gonna take what they learned from this fraternity and they're gonna, you know, put it wherever they you know, work at.
I had a student and he was very disrespectful, disruptive, and so I just stopped calling on him. So he came to my office hours, which I knew he would do. And he said, I'm really upset because you don't call on me. So I said, I don't call on you because I don't appreciate your interventions in the classroom. And he said, I think you're just put off because I'm a very manly man. So I said, no, that's not it. So I said, what I'd like you to do is when you have something useful to say, raise your hand and say it. If you have something petty and annoying to say, don't. And, you know, and I sort of went through it kind of, and I had no hopes that this would have any effect. Starting the next day, he became a model student. He ended up getting an A+ on the exam. It was just amazing. And he came to my office after the course was over, and he said, I just want to thank you because no one had ever told me that what I was doing was a problem. I think many of us figure, what's the point? Like, why bother? But if we bother, then this person is likely to hear it more than once, right? If they're abusive, someone tells them and someone else might tell them too, maybe they start thinking, maybe they've got a point. He was well on his way to being that CEO who was abusive to everybody and thought that anyone who objected was just, didn't like his manliness or whatever it was.
Cornell law professors like Sherry are concerned about asshole behavior. They monitor their students and have adopted a no-asshole rule when hiring in their department.
I assume everybody doesn't like assholes.
Today's conference is on how the law can play a role in governing assholery from Washington to Wall Street.
The financial services industry, in my view, and I don't think I'm alone here, is a quintessential asshole industry. Well, when you think about the pervasiveness of systematically asshole-type behavior in a particular social venue, for example, financial services industry, right? Then the problem of managing assholes becomes a structural problem in which law can potentially have a lot of say. So if we make certain types of asshole behavior systemically unprofitable, for example, irrational, something that is not rewarding, then that behavior will naturally kind of fall away. And overall, the system will become less prone to being overtaken by a bunch of assholes that continue to pursue their own private goals, their own insatiable appetites for private gain at the expense of the rest of us, the rest of the society.
You know, the people who were over speculating on Wall Street in the 1920s, just as those before 2008, were acting in individually rational manners. But that individual rationality kind of morphs into a kind of assholery. The only way to deal with a collective action problem of this sort is through an exercise of collective agency, right? You need a collective agent. I think of this as a sort of orchestra conductor, right? Somebody who sort of oversees and takes measures that makes it no longer individually rational to do the asshole thing. The central bank is that collective agent.
Colleagues Robert and Aaron share a concern about asshole capitalism. After the 2008 financial crisis, Robert was an organizer of the Occupy Wall Street movement, sleeping at night under a blanket at headquarters in Zuccotti Park. In the morning, he walked across the street to his day job at the New York Federal Reserve.
There was a consensus, a regulatory consensus here in the States in the lead up to the crisis that you can't really spot a bubble developing when it's in the course of developing. And some people were even saying that there is no such thing as a bubble, they just can't exist, right? That, it seems to me, was dead wrong. It was dead wrong that they can't exist, to say that they can't exist. Of course they occur, right? And the next thing is I thought you can actually spot them when they're developing. This is not a very controversial position now, but at the time, of course, it was very much against the consensus view. I call these recursive collective action problems. They're sort of self-augmenting. There's a snowball-like character to them. They make themselves worse, so to speak, until the credit runs out. That's what was going on in the lead up to 2008. That was what was going on in the lead up to 1929 as well. It's nonsense, I think, to say that you can't spot that sort of thing happening in advance.
In the 1920s, almost directly brought us the calamity that was the Second World War, the calamity that was the Nazi rise to power in Germany, the calamity that was the Holocaust, and the like. It's a very tight, direct link. I actually think if there hadn't been the bubble and bust in this country in the 20s, I don't think that the Nazi Party ever would have become anything more than a fringe party in Germany in that time. There's certainly no reason to think that it would have been because there was never any sign of its getting out of the fringes until the crash and until the German economy plummeted too, because it was so completely dependent on the American economy in the 1920s.
I don't know what it is, but something about this place just makes me think of assholes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a distinct air of it here. Yeah, very poignant sort of pungency to it.
The most foul-mouthed people are the investment bankers. And I'm assured that when you go and see things like The Wolf of Wall Street, you know, that language is typical of the language they actually use all the time. Very vulgar, very harsh, very assertive.
It was like mainlining adrenaline.
Yeah, fuckface. Look at where the stock's at today, huh?
You can't get anything. Pick up the cocksucking phone.
Sorry.
I would describe that a hedge fund as an asshole factory. You know, just churning them out in large numbers, because once you've got a horrible group of people together, then all they want to do is choose other horrible people to join them. You see what I mean? Yeah. So that when you get an asshole culture, they're in trouble, because inevitably they're going to flourish more, and people are going to become assholes because they think it's the right thing to do. I think there are some people who almost make the choice and over a long period of time become assholes when they probably didn't start out as them.
We don't create shit. We don't build anything.
No.
He thinks he's getting shit rich, which he is on paper. Mm-hmm. But you and me, the brokers, right, we're taking home cold hard cash via commission, motherfucker.
Right.
It is completely legitimate and normal and not a sign of weakness to really worry and care about those amongst us who are less fortunate and who need help. And if you remove that kind of notion from the collective consciousness, then you would encourage people to adopt this other extreme where, you know what, I'm only going to care about myself. And frequently the rationalization that comes with it is that, well, that's because, you know, I'm owed more than anybody else, or at the very least, I don't care what other people get in the bargain. It's their own problem.
We don't give two shits about how technology works, because all we care about is getting fucking rich.
It's one thing to have an asshole running your company, but what happens when you elect an asshole to run your country?
think that when you elect an arsehole to run your country, what you get is someone who frames everything around their own needs, around their own desires, and their maintenance in power. You basically elected someone who's there to preserve themselves, to protect themselves, to enrich themselves, and thinks of the world as being one that operates according to the degree to which you can enrich others who will support your power. Not the public, but your supporters. And all of the instruments that give rise to equality, particularly the rule of law, that might otherwise impinge on that selfish person's instincts, get undermined bit by bit, steadily. And that's what happened with Silvio Berlusconi in particularly his second and third times in government.
Despite scandals of widespread corruption, use of underage prostitutes, and a prison conviction for tax fraud, Silvio Berlusconi, media tycoon, football team owner, and former prime minister, has dominated the Italian imagination for over 30 years.
Would Berlusconi be a good example of an asshole?
Yeah, sure, yes. A very good example and an exceptional one. So a real, great, nice assholes for many reasons. Assholes are so often admired by others, and they are leaders. They are the funniest people in your class. And I remember the funniest people in school were the assholes.
Berlusconi burst onto the public stage as the owner of the first private network of TV stations throughout Italy. Filmmaker and activist Lorella Zanardo considers Berlusconi's seductive television and media empire the source of his rise to power.
At the beginning of the 80s, Berlusconi's TV started to broadcast, no? Canale 5, Rete 4, Italia 1, and TV changed completely because they started to offer programs where the focus was on beautiful and very feminine girls, nearly naked, but never naked, which is very Italian, and men older, much older than these girls, telling stupid stories, laughing, with the camera always on part of the bodies of these girls. And these girls were many girls. The idea was that with these girls, you at home could have no problems in life because it was fun, they were so erotic, so nice, so ready to accept men with no problems. Statistics say that Italians have 2 to 3 TV sets in every house in the northern part. And in the southern part, they have an average of 3 to 4 TV sets in every apartment. So these programs were entering not every house, every room. So it was quite powerful. And in that period, we didn't have computer or smartphone, internet. So every room had this TV set with Berlusconi entering and telling the storytelling of this wonderful world made of wonderful, nice girls, ready to love Italian men. 9 years ago, we had the horrible scandal of Berlusconi and his dinner party with girls and Ruby, and everybody was saying, oh, it's horrible. Why it's horrible? It's exactly what we watch every day since 30 years. Like a Fellini dream, huh?
Italy is immensely open to assholery. There is a desire for a protective figure. There's a desire for what the Italians call a barone, the person in charge, the person who decides everything, a godfather, a head of the family. There's a desire for a figure who will, find you a job, keep you in a job, make things okay, make it so that you don't have to worry. And Berlusconi has very ably presented himself as that, and I'm sure he actually feels the emotions of the person in that role.
I think Berlusconi was the original populist, at least in a European context. He got to power and built up his support by essentially promising to feed the inner selfishness of all sorts of groups in Italian society, showing his own entrepreneurial business success, his wealth, his girlfriends, his parties, and so forth as proof of what you can achieve if only you let your selfishness fly free. So he promised all sorts of goodies to those people who supported him, and under that cover, having put himself in power, managed to enrich himself.
We will remember this horrible period of life not for the bad people, but people who are considered good, but they were silent. So, Berlusconi is an asshole? Yes. We too. It's a country of assholes.
Nostalgia for the past seems to be the script populist leaders like Berlusconi follow. Setting back the clock, ignoring shifting social values, selling asshole behavior as the triumphant way forward. But we don't all act like sheep. For example, Vladimir Luxuria.
I remember when I was at school once, the teacher asked me, do you like men or do you prefer women? And since I was sincere, I said, I like men. And he said, come here. And I went next to him in front of all the other students. And he had a stick. And he beat the stick on my hand as a punishment so that anyone could see. Now, it would be considered illegal. But when I was a child, it was considered so normal, so normal.
To be a man, at least in the time in which I was educated, was to show that you are not a woman, to show that you're not a girl. Don't be a girl. Don't be girlish. In sport, in whatever. No? Also, don't cry. You're not a girl.
I was elected in the Italian parliament in 2006 until 2008. I remember Berlusconi. He was closing all his reunions, in the squares, saying this as the last words. Do you want that in Italy people like Vladimir Luxuria would be elected into parliament? And all his fans were shouting, no! But I was elected.
Well into Berlusconi's regime, The Economist magazine decided to challenge his outrageous governance. Bill Emmett was the chief editor at the time.
Yes, it was worth that attention because of the potential of the same behavior moving into other countries, into France, into Britain, into the United States, into all over the Western world. So it became a kind of case study in what could happen in a new mediatic world where assholedom could be amplified, and sadly we have seen it spread into other countries. Had he come to political maturity at the time of Twitter, of social media, I think he would have used Twitter and social media because, again, as subsequent characters have shown us, it provides a way to give a direct communication to the people, unfiltered by the rest of the media.
The free flow of information has always been the U.S. mantra. It's given American tech companies an unregulated freedom to profit from addictive software, abuse of our privacy, and corporate monopolies with unprecedented power.
Silicon Valley is really interesting. It's breeding a, so to speak, new variety of asshole. People who believe that in virtue of having accumulated enormous amounts of money, or in virtue of being on the cusp of accumulating enormous amounts of money, they're entitled to ignore the ordinary sanctions that attach to behaving in certain ways.
We're all here because we are optimistic about the future. We have real challenges to address, but we have to keep that sense of optimism too.
Zuckerberg is another, case in which, he move fast and break things was a slogan for a while, and he explains it as, well, he doesn't want his creative people to be tied up with perfectionism. They should be free to sort of fail and move on to other things. If a consequence of Facebook moving fast and breaking things is that it breaks democracy, or democracy becomes a shell, and the historic march of democracy is ended, and we have a resurgence of authoritarianism and sort of papered over formality democracy, that's not something that can be undone.
It's clear now that we didn't do enough to prevent these tools from being used for harm as well. And that goes for fake news, for foreign interference in elections and hate speech, as well as developers and data privacy.
Each apology seems very sincere. Right? He really means it. I mean, he knows how to apologize. That's not something assholes usually know how to do, right? But, it's the same really good apology over and over again without, sort of the action you would think if the previous ones really were sincere.
We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a big mistake. And it was my mistake, and I'm sorry.
If things really do go for the worst, as bad as they can go now for the U.S. and for other countries, then Zuckerberg, oops, it's like, oops, it's not excusable, right? It's not just an innocent mistake.
It's terribly great that we have these people and that they make these great discoveries, but I think the great mistake is to listen to them when they start telling us how we should live.
And let's be honest, if you give a 24-year-old $10 million, $20 million, $50 million, $100 million in funding, do you really expect them to have good behavior all the time? Do you not expect to change who and what they are and how they approach things? You've just given somebody who's really done nothing in their life, like their entire life they've done nothing, now they have $100 million. That's just going to enable bad behavior.
I think that the effect of the platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and other social media platforms on us is to basically give vent to the worst aspects of our nature. It gives us a platform to be bigoted. It gives us a platform to be prejudiced. It gives us a platform to sound off on people. It gives us a platform to abuse people.
The New Yorker had a cartoon in the 90s, you may remember. It was two dogs at a computer, and it said, "On the internet, no one knows you're a dog." So it is so appropriate to today. And I do think that the ability to launch an attack, an anonymous attack against people, has kind of like really lowered the expectations of behavior.
It's almost impossible to stop terrible behavior online, because as soon as you block a troll, right, another one springs up. And as soon as you try to enact a structural means of blocking trolls, where you say like some kinds of speech are acceptable and some are unacceptable, their whole mobs will rise up yelling, free speech, liberty.
Now imagine if all you are doing is talking to your alt-right friends or your white supremacist friends, and you're only sharing articles, and you're only sharing information, and you're only sharing the things that you believe in and that inflame your passions. And you do this for days and weeks and months at a time. You're going to feel very emboldened. We talk about the radicalization. It was like, how is this person radicalized? I mean, it's not just Islam where people get radicalized, right? It's white supremacists get radicalized. It's, anti-abortion people get become radicalized. Radicalized? Yeah, radicalized. Even, Black Lives Matter people get radicalized. They all do if they stay in that echo chamber.
Like I said, I have a lot of followers, and I kind of live my life by, if you don't have anything to benefit me, then I most likely won't talk to you. I have a lot of people reach out to me to either like be my friend or like work with me and stuff. And I always look at their following or just who they're surrounded with. And if I don't think that they can benefit me, I 100% won't talk to you.
It's about eyeballs, right? And if you keep people engaged in your platform, you're not going to do something to stop them. I'm going to make a very bold statement backed up with no facts whatsoever. Facebook could eliminate 90% of the fake news tomorrow. It would hit their revenue in such a way that it would send their stock price crashing. What do you do? That's the dilemma. The same thing with Twitter, same thing with Google. I think those organizations have a responsibility that they have abrogated.
Silicon Valley's freedom to break things without regard to its social impact may come to an end. When Washington calls on CEOs like Zuckerberg to face inquiries, it's clear they are concerned. Google's CEO, on the other hand, refused to attend his government's inquiry, sending lawyers instead. The European Union took action, suing Google $5 billion for antitrust violations. It remains to be seen if US regulators will follow the European lead.
Why is it happening in Europe and not in Washington? Well, of course, these are American companies, and therefore European regulators are a bit more inclined to push back against them, but also they are not subject to the same political donation influence that the Washington authorities are. Google has become the biggest campaign finance donor in congressional elections in the latest couple of cycles. Facebook is also a big donor. The European Commission is immune to such direct financial influence.
Regulating this corporate entitlement with Silicon Valley or Wall Street companies is a challenge. Here at Baird, a multinational wealth management and equity firm with client investments of $77 billion, their philosophy is carved into the woodwork. Trust, teamwork, respect, and a no-asshole rule.
Literally the day I got here, I put into place the no-asshole theory. One, we're not going to hire or tolerate anybody who puts himself ahead of the firm or the clients. And we're going to only do business with people who are high integrity.
It was controversial. There was some conservatives in the firm who were like, oh my gosh, you can't say that out loud. And then there was others that you could tell just loved it. It is what it is, and we talk about it openly, and some people will temper it to the no jerk rule, but a lot of people have gotten used to just saying the no asshole rule. When we interview people, we ask our receptionist who meets them all what they thought of that person as they were waiting for 5 minutes. And we'll hear the stories of, wow, they were rude, they were condescending, and we have said no to people.
Yeah, look, I can't tell you the number of conversations I've said, you're right, Joe, you're really special. You're so special, you need to work someplace else. And you mean that. And when you do, people cheer you because the greater good prevails. And it's a winning strategy for us.
The strategy is working so well, they are number 4 on Fortune's 100 best companies to work for, and the top financial firm on the list.
The firms that are in the top 100 and a great place to work outperform their peers 2.5 to 3 to 1 in terms of returns. Here at Baird, 2 out of 3 people are shareholders. So what we say to people is, it's your firm. Behave accordingly. Protect your firm. It is a very powerful message. You're an owner. Protect your franchise. And you make people accountable.
So what if you buy 50,000 shares of the thing and never goes back?
It's that long-term orientation that is that's missing from most of Wall Street. It's really pretty simple, but it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of focus, because they're like, wow, just this one time, right? Like, no, you can't do that. Because if you do, then people won't trust you.
After grasping the destructive impact of asshole behavior and the courage it takes to push back, I asked Aaron if he felt anything had changed since he wrote his book.
The asshole explosion was something I never would have guessed would ever happen when I started thinking about it. I mean, I sort of described it in abstract terms, but if you'd have told me that our country was headed towards something like that, I would have been shocked. I mean, at the time I thought we were on the precipice, right? And then what happened was we just, went all in. And now it's really sort of, our fate's, unclear.
Are you worried? Are you
Yeah,
worried?
yeah, I'm worried, yeah. I am worried.
I have Aaron to thank for his warning of the rising tide of assholery, and for a journey that leaves me hopeful about the resilience of human decency.
You know, if you walk and you see somebody being asshole with someone, with a woman, with a girl, with a dog, with a gay, with a transgender, with an old people, with a foreigner, whoever, and you decide, just you pretend you haven't seen, then you are the same asshole like him. If you decide to react, then you are doing something really big. Like a little stone, you know, in a pool of indifference. Little ring that go wider and wider and wider, can reach longer distances.